Coming up on this Tuesday edition of Daybreak, a warrant is issued to formally arrest the detained son of the owner of the sunken Sewol-ho ferry on charges of embezzling millions of dollars of the ferry operator's funds. Korea's main stock market closes at its highest level this year, powered by continued foreign buying and closer cooperation between the government and the central bank on stimulating the economy. Plus, Israel says it won't stop its offensive against Hamas until its mission is accomplished, as more deaths are reported on both sides, including 9 Palestinian children at a refugee camp in Gaza. Daybreak begins now.
Hello, and thanks for joining us. To our viewers around the world, it's 6 a.m. on Tuesday, July 29th here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom, and you're tuned in to Daybreak. And we start this morning with the latest developments on the investigation into April's tragic ferry disaster. A court in the western port city of Incheon has issued a warrant to formally arrest Yoo Dae-kyun, the detained son of the owner of the Sewol-ho, on charges of embezzlement that the authorities say was partly to blame for the sinking that left over 300 people dead or missing. Mr. Yoo was indicted on charges of misappropriating more than $9.5 million of funds of the ferry operator and its affiliates. You can see his capture there. The court ordered the detainment of a female bodyguard who helped him and was with Mr. Yoo and helped him avoid the authorities for months. Police are still trying to track down the driver of the deceased ferry owner, Yoo Byung-eun. They want to question him about the elder Yoo's final whereabouts before his death. The driver's wife and another close aide of Yoo Byung-eun turned themselves in to the prosecution on Monday. Now, 6 surviving students of the Sewol-ho ferry disaster were in court on Monday, giving testimony in a trial against the ferry's captain and crew members. The students said many more would have survived the sinking if the crew and the Coast Guard had taken proper measures. Yulian reports.
A ferry with about 300 passengers, most of them students, is sinking fast. But instead of staging full-out rescue efforts, their crew members are nowhere to be seen, and the Coast Guard is watching from afar. This was the testimony given by 6 survivors of April's Sewol-ho ferry disaster, who are students of Danwon High School. Speaking in a court hearing Monday afternoon, the 6 gave a chronological account of the event from the time of the accident. One said that about 30 students were lined up for the emergency exit, but when the rescue team didn't arrive, each student began jumping into the water. As soon as she did, the student says in a shaky voice that the wave suddenly crashed up against the emergency exit where 10 of her friends had been waiting. They were unable to escape. Another surviving student also said that the Sewol-ho crew were nowhere to be seen for the entirety of her escape. She testified that the Coast Guard was within an arm's reach of the emergency exit, but only lifted out the people who fell into the water. She said she told them a lot more of her friends were just inside the emergency exit, but the Coast Guard only watched as the ship continued to list. Most students told judges that there were repeated announcements instructing passengers to stay where they were. If they had received instructions to escape, the 6 students said many more could have survived. The students ended their testimonies by asking the panel of judges to punish the crewmen to the strictest letter of the law. Sewol-ho ferry captain Lee Jun-seok and 3 of his fellow crew are currently on trial for charges of homicide by willful negligence. None were present at Monday's court hearing. Yurian, Arirang News.
Now, staying in domestic news, and the polls will open in under 24 hours for the July 30th by-elections, with 15 seats in the National Assembly there for the taking. Intensifying their campaigns in the home stretch, the ruling party is pushing its economic stimulus and growth measures, while the opposition party has found a new angle at which to criticise the government over April's ferry disaster. Ji Myung-gil reports.
The July 30th polls carry extra weight because 15 parliamentary seats are up for grabs, the largest total ever for a by-election. The stakes are perhaps greatest in the Seoul and Suwon constituencies, which are considered strategically important as barometers of public sentiment. Candidates of the ruling Saenuri Party have made economic recovery their main platform. They've been touting their party's connection to President Park Geun-hye and promising reforms.
There are two choices in this election. Elect our candidates who will bring about economic development for their electoral regions, or their candidates who are mired in collusive practices and old politics.
The main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy has also gone on the offensive, deeming the by-election a chance to prompt change.
We must provide a warning to the ruling Saenuri Party in the presidential office so that the government brings about changes.
The main opposition party has been hammering on the government's failure to arrest Yoo Byung-eun, the de facto owner of the Sewol-ho ferry, which sunk in April, killing 304 people. To make them more competitive in races against their conservative rivals, the opposition recently unified campaigns in specific constituencies behind one candidate. The by-election comes less than 2 months after local elections in June, which neither the ruling nor the main opposition party claimed victory. Kim Young-git, Arirang News.
Now, some newly discovered documents show that Japan did not return major cultural assets to Korea that it had agreed to give back under a 1965 treaty that normalized the two nations' bilateral ties. According to the documents obtained by Seoul-based Yonhap news agency on Monday, Japan only sent around a third, some 1,400 pieces of the Korean property in question. The cultural properties that came back home were also those that Japan considered to have low historical or artistic value. The documents came from a ruling of the Tokyo High Court last week that upheld an appeal by the central government not to disclose 48 diplomatic documents related to that treaty, the 1965 treaty. It said release of the records could have a negative effect on Japanese diplomacy. Now, Korea's finance minister says the government needs to push aggressive fiscal and monetary policies for at least the next 18 months to prop up the ailing domestic economy. As part of his vision, Choi Kyung-hwan emphasized the importance of kickstarting the sputtering real estate market. Our Hwang Jie has the details.
Korea's new finance minister Choi Kyung-hwan is strongly pushing ahead with its goal to boost the nation's flagging economy. During a television debate with journalists on Monday, Choi said the government will seek aggressive economic policies for as long as they're needed.
Whether it's fiscal or monetary, we need an expansionary policy for the time being. I'm not just talking about the second half of this year. The policies should continue at least until through next year and could continue on beyond that, if necessary.
Che added that the government and the nation's central bank share the same view over the current economic situation. He said that both parties have agreed on running an expansionary policy, further raising expectations of a rate cut next month.
The Korean economy is suffering from poor conditions, so the Bank of Korea will countermeasure such risks with its monetary policy.
Che said, however, that he's skeptical about lowering the key rate too much, like in the United States or Japan, where interest rates remain near zero as their economic situations are different. The finance minister also described the current real estate market as being in a cold period and reiterated the importance of normalizing the housing market. Hwang Jie, Arirang News.
Now, Korea's main stock market, the Kospi, closed on Monday at its highest point this year thanks to strong buying by foreign investors and institutions. Analysts also say closer cooperation between the government and the central bank on the need for fiscal expansion buoyed investor sentiment. Our Kim Jeon reports.
Monday was another record-breaking day for the nation's benchmark index. After surpassing the 2,050 mark at one point in midday trading, the Kospi settled in at 2,048 points, picking up its biggest gains in nearly 9 months. Kim Young-yeol, an analyst at Seoul-based Kyobo Securities Company, says the impact of economic plans laid out by the country's new finance minister have played an important part in the record-breaking gain.
The local stock market is reflecting on Che's economic plan, which shows the government's willingness to breathe life into the Korean economy. The main difference between the new economic team and the previous one, led by Hyun Oh-seok, is that other government departments, such as the Ministry of Strategy and Finance and the Bank of Korea, are on the same page with Che on what kinds of policies should be made in order to diagnose the Korean economy.
Last Thursday, the nation's new economic team, led by Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan, unveiled a $40 billion stimulus plan to spur growth by inducing spending and promoting corporate activity. Although the new finance minister has left the issue of setting the country's interest rate to the Bank of Korea, Choi said he expects the monetary authority will make decisions to counter the economic downturn. Meanwhile, Kang Yeon-chul, an analyst at Seoul-based Uri Investment and Security, says the country's rising exports played a big part in the Kospi surge.
Exports this year have reached all-time highs, and company performance has also improved compared to last year. Exports to the U.S. and Europe steadily rose, and exports to China are expected to rise during the July and August period this year.
Korea logged a trade surplus for the 29th straight month in June, as exports amounted to $47.8 billion last month, up 2.5% from a year earlier. Kim Jeon, Arirang News.
Time now for a look through the international headlines we're following on this Tuesday morning. For that, we turn to our Eunice Kim, standing by at the News Centre. Good morning, Eunice.
Good morning, Mark. What was supposed to be one of the most joyous days on the Muslim calendar was wrought with tears for those in Gaza on Monday. 10 people were reported killed, among them 8 children, after explosions rocked Gaza City in the midst of modest afternoon celebrations of Eid al-Fitr, which marks the end of the fasting month of Ramadan. Palestinian officials said they were hit by Israeli airstrikes, but Israel said it was misfired rockets detonated by, quote, terrorists that were to blame. Meanwhile, Israel confirmed 5 of its soldiers died on Monday and that an equal number of Hamas fighters were also killed inside Israel. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, while calling Monday a painful day, warned of a prolonged Israeli Gaza operation that would neutralize Hamas tunnels into Israel. Meanwhile, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon reiterated an earlier call by the United Nations for an immediate, unconditional humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza during the Muslim Eid al-Fitr holiday. But a ceasefire remains elusive. Turning now to the downed Malaysian airliner in eastern Ukraine, Ukrainian security officials say that the plane was hit by shrapnel from a missile that caused massive explosive decompression and for it to nosedive. They cited information from the plane's flight data recorders, which are currently being scrutinized by experts in Britain. Pro-Russian rebels have been accused of hitting the plane with a missile fired from a Buk system, which is designed to explode near the aircraft and spray it with shrapnel. But rebels blame Ukraine for the shoot-down. This, as a team of Dutch and Australian forensic experts and police have been kept from securing the crash site for a second consecutive day due to heavy fighting nearby. The UN's human rights chief Navi Pillay said Monday the downing of the jet could constitute a war crime, promising justice to those violating international law. Meanwhile, the White House says the European Union and the U.S. are preparing new sanctions against Russia in a bid to convince Moscow to stop support of rebels in Ukraine and encourage them to pull back. The European Union had reached a preliminary deal last week to target Russia's access to European capital markets, as well as trade in the defense sector and sensitive technologies. President Barack Obama's Deputy National Security Advisor, Tony Blinken, said it expects the EU will impose the sanctions this week and that the U.S. will follow suit with its own measures. And finally, if you are in China, you might be hard-pressed to order yourself a Big Mac or a box of chicken nuggets. That's because McDonald's in China has pulled its menu items that have beef, chicken, and pork in them. This comes as the company faces meat shortages after its meat supplier, the troubled Shanghai Husi Food, has been overhauled by its Illinois-based parent company, which recalled its products from the market. Husi Food was accused of mixing expired meat with fresh products and forging production dates in a television documentary, causing an uproar from the fast food chains they service. Parent company OSI Group said the food safety scandal was absolutely inconsistent with the group's standards and that it will review all of its China plants. KFC and Pizza Hut parent Yum Brands Incorporated had already severed ties with OSI last week.
We start before the sun rises to bring you the latest stories out of Korea. We also lead the way with important global coverage. Stay on the pulse of what is happening with Daybreak.
Korea has confirmed another case of foot and mouth disease, signaling a spread of the highly infectious animal disease may have already begun. The Agriculture Ministry said on Monday that a second outbreak was confirmed at a pig farm in Goryeo, North Gyeongsang-do Province, and this comes just 4 days after the country confirmed its first outbreak of FMD in over 3 years at a pig farm in a nearby county, Uiseong. All animals and vehicles at the farm in Goryeo have been placed under a temporary lockdown to prevent possible spreading of the disease. Korea's last outbreak in 2011 led to the culling of nearly 3.5 million animals. Now, Korea's financial authorities have announced ways to make it easier for foreigners in Korea to shop online. They are lifting the 300,000 won or $290 limit in online authentication systems and allowing multiple payment technologies. The authentication program was designed to enhance cybersecurity, but is a major inconvenience to shoppers in Korea. The changes could go into effect as early as next month. Now, on the cultural front, a special photo exhibition about Korea's easternmost island of Dokdo has opened in Seoul. It's the work of celebrated photographer Kim Jung-man, who's made the island his subject every season over the last 2 years. Park Ji-won reports.
From its breathtaking sunrises and the east sea that surrounds it, to flocks of seagulls and the moon hovering above the horizon, this photo exhibition shows the many faces of Dokdo that may be foreign to those who haven't had the pleasure of visiting. Korea's celebrated photographer Kim Jung-man visited Korea's easternmost territory several times over the course of 2 years to capture the beauty of the island day and night at every season.
It is a great honor for a Korean photographer to be able to shoot the very place that represents the Korean spirit. This beautiful and sometimes lonely place has inherited various artistic meanings as well, with some literary and historical connotations.
Kim shot more than 20,000 photos, but settled on 55 works that depict the mysterious and humble island. All the photos will be donated to the Northeast Asian History Foundation, which first came up with the idea of the Dokdo exhibition.
People can now freely visit Dokdo, but they usually don't stay long enough to appreciate the diversity of the island. We'd like to show audiences various beautiful images of the islets.
The foundation hopes the exhibition helps to counter Japan's false claims to the island, an island that is not only Korean land, but also part of the Korean spirit. 박지원, Arirang News.
And a good Tuesday morning to you all as we kick things off with the KFA as they continue to rebuild their committee. And on Monday, the newest technical committee director Lee Young-soo announced his new committee members. And with 7 names being announced on Monday, Lee Young-soo, the head of the technical committee, decided to choose people who he believed had expertise in different areas of the game. This includes several former head coaches like Kim Hak-bum, who once coached Seongnam Ilhwa Cheonma in the K-League Classic. Now, another notable name includes Cho Young-jung, who was the match director of the K-League. And with the technical committee now complete, Lee Young-soo stated that he is not in a rush to choose the next head coach, but will make his decision before the September A matches. And now moving over to baseball this time as manager Yoo Byung-eun of the Samsung Lions announced his 24-man roster of the upcoming Asian Games in Incheon. And while there were some clear-cut picks like Park Byung-ho, the Nexen Heroes who will play first base for the national team, several players were included for the first time. This includes Tusan Bears utility man Oh Jae-won, NC Dinos second-year slugger Na Sung-bum, and NC Dinos ace Lee Jae-hak. And of course, the 24-man roster also includes an amateur player by the name of Hong Sung-moo from Donghee University. And now staying in domestic baseball, a couple of games took place last night to make up for some of the rained-down games over the weekend as the Nexen Heroes come back to beat the SK Wyverns 10-8. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the red-hot LG Twins take on the Lotte Giants. And of course, going into the game here, we go over to the first inning. Park Jong-yoon with a sac fly to center gives the Lotte Giants the early 1-0 lead. Now third inning, Kim Moon-ho with an RBI double here. This score is Park Ki-hyuk, and it's 2-0 Lotte before Ha Jun-ho makes it 3-0 with an RBI single to center field. But here come the LG Twins in the 7th inning. Park Yong-taek with a 2-run single cuts the deficit to 3-2 before Chung Hee-yoon with 2 men on. There it goes, deep to left field, a 3-run shot, and that's the game winner there as the LG Twins come back to win this game 5-3. Now more baseball, this time in the majors as LA Dodgers lefty Lee Hyun-jin won his 12th game of the season, this time against a team he normally struggles against. Now going up against the San Francisco Giants, Ryu goes 6 innings, giving up 6 hits on 3 runs while striking out 7 San Francisco Giants hitters. Now the Dodgers bullpen does the rest as they win the game 4-3 as the South Korean improves his record to 12-5, helping the Dodgers sweep the Giants. And now finishing things off in the LPGA with the South Korean national team finishing 3rd in the inaugural LPGA International Crown over the weekend. It was quite disappointing finish, but for Park In-bi, she showed that she's still one of the best in the world. Now, whether it be the clutch performance against Team USA over the weekend to help Korea advance to the finals or the 4-2 win over Caroline Hedwell of Sweden in this final single play round, Park In-bi showed that she was the leader on the team and pulled through for the team when they needed her. And while Korea might have fell short, she hopes Korea will finish on top in the next international crown in 2 years. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning, I'm Ijeon with your weather update. Well, monsoon season is almost coming to an end, and we're expecting last round of monsoon showers this week. And for today, regions down south can expect to receive 5 to 20 millimeters of monsoon rain in the morning hours, while the rest of the nation will have mostly to partly cloudy day. And this afternoon is going to be very hot and humid across the nation. Temperature is going to hover low 30s across the nation, and the discomfort index will get higher as we head into the midday. And with that, let's take a closer look at the readings for today. The morning low here in Seoul is starting out at 22, then the high will rise to 31, while Daegu will climb to 32, and Gwangju and Busan will have a daily highs of 31 and 29 respectively. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like Jeju Island and Daejeon will top out at 30 and 31, and Dokdo should see highs of 27, while Mount Keungang reaches at 20 this afternoon. Well, that's all for Korea, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
And that's all we have for now. Korea Today is coming up in half an hour's time, and we'll be back throughout the day with many more news updates, and I'll be back at 10 a.m. Korea time. Until then, goodbye.